I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Burke County Commissioners, Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Monday, March 20th, 2023 here at 6 p.m. in our conference room. Madam Clerk, I'd like to welcome everybody. Welcome to spring, technically. Still a little cold this morning. Madam Clerk, Commissioners Smith, Burns, Britton, and Carswell are all in attendance. We also have Thad Hodges, our Assistant Finance Officer, in attendance as well, our County Attorney and our County Manager. I would remind everyone to please silence your mobile devices, and if you do come to the lectern to speak, make sure the red microphone is in order, is reflected and showing so we can hear you on YouTube. This time, I'm going to ask our friend Pastor Jeff Boone, from First Free Will Baptist Church of Morganton, to lead us in our invocation. I will also ask you to remain standing as Commissioner Smith will lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, that you give us the grace and the strength and the will to see another day. We couldn't do it by ourselves, but by your blessings we're here. Thank you for these good people, Lord, the commissioners, their staff, for these, our neighbors in attendance, God. We are all interdependent and interconnected, no matter what others may say, making us interrelated. And Father, with you to guide us, we can't help but come through victorious. I notice, Lord, your insignia on this bench, and God, we trust. Let us trust in you tonight, God. Be with the board members as they make decisions. Lord, not all of them's popular, I'm sure. But God, let them be right. And be with these, our neighbors, Lord. Let them, dear God, put that trust in you as well. Father, have your will and your way in our hearts and our lives. And all that we do, Lord, let us give you glory and honor, because without you, this wouldn't be possible. I thank you for these people and this time together, and ask, God, that you bless, Lord, as only you can. And we'll give you praise and honor and glory for it all. In Jesus' name, amen and amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Gentlemen, it's now time for the approval of the agenda. Gentlemen, if you had a chance to review the agenda, do we have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I make a motion we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. Next item of business is approval of meeting minutes. To approve the minutes for July 5th, 2022, Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting, and July 19th, 2022, Board of Commissioners regular meeting. Gentlemen, you've had a chance to review the minutes. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the July 5th, 2022 pre-agenda minutes, the July 19th, 2022 regular meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that is 5-0. Gentlemen, that brings us to presentations. Our first one of our favorites every time, to lead off the show, is the Pet of the Month. This is presented by our good friend Caitlin Suttermeyer, our Animal Service Director. And I understand she has a dog named Stinky.
We do. We appreciate you guys having us back for March. We do want to present our Pets of the Month. We do have Miss Stinky here. She's about 6 years old. Look at that. She gives the best smiles. She is super friendly. When Miss Stinky actually came to us, she was actually brought in because she was attacked by another dog. But despite that, she has healed up from her injuries, and she is incredibly dog friendly, so that did not affect her whatsoever. She loves puppies. Those are her favorite thing in the entire world. So she definitely gets to socialize with some of our younger dogs just to kind of get them where they need to be, because she is so well mannered. She'll sit right next to you. She is fairly active, so she would like an active family. So if you like to go on probably moderate hikes, I wouldn't say she's too into advanced hiking, but if you go for moderate hikes or anything like that, I think she would make a great partner for that. She'd make anybody a wonderful dog. I think she would integrate well into any family. So if you guys are looking to adopt a dog, this one is definitely for you. I don't know why. She's one of our longest residents. She gets overlooked quite a bit. So please tell your friends or come down and adopt Miss Stinky. As always, we never want to leave our kitty cats out. So this is Bouffant. He does not have a Bouffant, and this is also a male, so we have to get pretty creative with our names because we do run out of them. But he is a 2-year-old male-neutered cat. He is incredibly sweet. He gives the best head bumps. I think we've had a few spicy cats that we've shown off a little bit because they also get overlooked. But Bouffant is incredibly sweet. He would do well in a family, so he is also looking for a forever home. And then we did want to highlight, we have been doing a Cops and Slobbers event every month, and we've been highlighting some of our agencies here in Burke County. So we did the Highway Patrol for the month of February, and they had a great time with their photo shoot. I think it's a big stress relief for our law enforcement guys and girls out there, but you can see our dogs were able to get in the car with them. They had a great time. I think it was a big stress relief for everyone. So we do want to thank the Highway Patrol and Karen Sazaki with Karen's Creations for all the photos that they did. That was some really good PR for both agencies, and we are getting with the Sheriff's Office on Wednesday to do their photo shoot. So please stay tuned for those photos. We did also want to let everyone know there have been 3, this will be our 3rd reading event. We do Read to a Dog hosted by the Morganton Public Library. So every 4th Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. I think we've had a few participants here in the crowd. They came and talked about some dogs that we have seen. It is a great time. We have a huge turnout. The kids will come down. They'll pick an animal to sit down and read to. Takes about an hour, and it is a lot of fun. So our next one is this Thursday, and we are going to be doing more in the summer months, but I think we're going to adjust our times a little bit because kids are out of school, and it also gets very hot in our shelter. So we're working with that. So follow us if you guys want to continue to do that. And then we also wanted to remind everyone our Animal Services Foundation, we are going to be the recipients of a love offering this Friday at the Worship in the Valley concert that is going to be at the Catawba Valley Baptist Church, and we're really excited to be there. We're going to have some dogs available for adoption. We'll be letting people know kind of what it is that we do out in the community. So if you guys want to come out Friday night, I think it's going to be really nice. So that'll be a lot of fun for everyone. As always, for more information on any services that we offer, including adopting and fostering, contact us. Swing by, shoot us an email. We're happy to talk to you. But other than that, that's what we've got going on.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Caitlin? I would just encourage everybody to adopt Bouffant and Stinky. Stinky may need an agent for marketing purposes, maybe the name's the hang-up, possibly.
It could be. She's not stinky. She's a little greasy, but she's not stinky.
Well, I'd also encourage everyone to spay and neuter as well. So thank you so much for your report.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, that brings us to item number 2. DSS proclamation declaring March as National Social Work Month, and this will be presented by Corey Fisher-Wellman, our DSS Director. Corey, how are you, my friend?
I appreciate the opportunity to come before you guys tonight. I'm bringing forward a proclamation acknowledging March as National Social Work Month. We have about 100 social workers that work for Burke County between public health and DSS who work tirelessly day in and day out to make sure the safety and security of our citizens. So I think this is a fantastic way of honoring the work that they do. So happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, it's my pleasure to serve on the DSS board with Corey and all the great folks over at our social services department. I appreciate so much what they do and the hard work that they provide our citizens every month. So it's my pleasure to make a motion that we approve proclamation 202301.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that is 5-0. Corey, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All right, this brings us to presentation number 3, VEDIC, update on fiscal year 2021-2022 activities, and this will be presented by Tanya Stevenson. Well, no, you're not Tanya, you're Eddie.
I'm not Tanya. I'm
Eddie
Eddie
McGimpsey.
I'm Eddie McGimpsey. I'm the lead off. We're here with a group of folks from VEDIC today. I'm going to cover just a little bit of the history of VEDIC to give you an idea of where we started from. The town of Valdez established the Valdez Economic Development Investment Corporation as part of an NC Rural Center NC STEP program in 2009. VEDIC's purpose was to provide a comprehensive set of services to new and existing businesses in Valdez. The Valdez STEP Committee received $125,000 from the Rural Center to be used for a revolving loan fund. VEDIC was created to administer the program and made the first loan in July of 2009. In 2010, the Golden Leaf Foundation, through the Tier 1 Community Assistance Program, allocated $250,000 for a revolving loan fund that would be administered by VEDIC to cover Burke County as a whole. VEDIC became a 501c3 with an expanding board to give representation from the whole county. County-wide loans to businesses were first made in 2011, and in 2012, VEDIC applied to the USDA Rural Business Cooperative Services to be an intermediary lending program with a request of $161,000, which was approved by the USDA and allocated by VEDIC. In July 2014, VEDIC received a transfer of funds in the amount of $433,475 in March 2015 and a transfer of $458,000 in July of 2015. A $675,000 transfer in July and another transfer of $397,411 was received. As a USDA intermediary lender, VEDIC can make loans anywhere in North Carolina with a population of 50,000 and less, but continues to concentrate efforts in Western North Carolina. Whoops. And that's a little bit about us, and I'm going to introduce Tanya Stevenson now to go over a little more information. She is our vice chair of VEDIC, and also you may be familiar with Tanya from the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. It says Sherry Long. I'm not Sherry Long, and I can't talk nearly as fast as she does, but I'll try to get through this pretty quickly. I am serving as the vice chair, and Sherry regrets that she was unable to be with us tonight, so you get me instead. Thank you for having us. Thank you to all the commissioners, the staff. We appreciate you allowing us to come and tell you a little bit about VEDIC. So we're going to start. So the number of loans that we have gotten in this previous year that we're talking about is 21 loans we have done this year, 7 ARC loans, and total $739,000. Previous year it was 22 loans, so 7 ARCs with $935,000. So we went down just a little bit in the amount that we loaned out. However, it was the same amount of loans. We continue to let people know that we are there for loaning out money, so we hope to see that grow this year. Here's the loans by the county from 2021 to 22 that we gave out. As you see, Burke is our #1 county that we serve, but we also serve other counties in this region. And as Eddie said, we can serve any region throughout the North Carolina through being an intermediary with the USDA. So we're really proud of the fact that we can loan throughout the entire state. But then again, we did start in Burke County, so we like to help out Burke County companies get started. Since 2009, as we said, when we got started and started loaning out as soon as we could, we have loaned 167 loans, or we have approved 167 loans, which comes out to about $7.6 million. So we have really given out the money throughout the region to help companies get off the ground and started. So that's money going right back into small businesses throughout this area. Out of that $7.6 million, we have only 4.2% of the loans, 7 out of 167 that went into default, which, as you guys know, that the reason VEDIC got started was we do more riskier loans. So the fact that we do somewhat risky loans and only had 4.2% of our loans to go in default in all this time makes us pretty proud. We feel like we are good stewards. Scott shaking his hand as a board member himself. You know the arduous conversations we have to give these loans out. So we really watch what we do and making sure that we really try to be good stewards of the money that we have been given. So out of that the 7 loans I said that went into default, it equates to $126,500, which is 1.7% of loss since the inception of our loans. Again, I think is a really good record for the organization. So the original grant that we got from the Golden Leaf Revolving Fund was $250,000, which we have revolved it around, loaned out, brought money in, and loaned again, and it's up to $884,000 that we have loaned out since we got that grant, which means that we're just bringing in more money so we can take more money out to help these businesses either get started or do some renovations or whatever it is that they may need for their businesses. So the original loan grant we got from the World Center to help Valdez was $125,000, and we have revolved that around to $372,285. And we're actually getting ready to vote on another one for Valdez this week. I'm excited to hopefully that it'll get voted through. So, 75 of the 167 loans that we have loaned out since our inception has been to minority companies. That's 45% at a total of $3.5 million. So almost half of our loans that we have given have been to help minority businesses, which I'm really proud of that as well, and hope that you would be. And so in 2019, with the help of Sherry Long, who is a wonderful grant writer, we received a $100,000 grant from ARC, which since then we have funded and turned that into, we funded $195,000 totaling 21 loans through that $100,000 grant that we just got in 2019. So we're really excited that we've got them as a partner now, and we're continuing to go back to them. As a matter of fact, in 2022, we got an additional $100,000 from the ARC, which we're really excited about and getting ready to start loaning that money out. So if you're a small business and you hear this, or you got an idea and you wanted to get a business started, keep us in mind if we can help you with the funding for your business. Carrie would love to talk to you. So as of today, we have 58 loans that are open. Thankfully, we actually had several loans paid off during the COVID, and people were getting PPP loans, and they used that to pay off VEDIC loans, which we love because that means it brings money back into VEDIC that we can loan out again to other businesses. The original loan amount of those 58 was $2.7 million, and the outstanding balance we have of them right now is at $1.9 million. So that's where we stand today with our portfolio. And here's the one that I love, being a Chamber of Commerce employee. We've created jobs through our loans. And so from the inception of our loans, we've created 821 jobs, 585 of those being here in Burke County, which to me is phenomenal, especially when you consider so many of the companies that we loan to are just one-man companies, and one-man, one-woman companies. So the fact that we've helped create 821 jobs in this area has really been a phenomenal thing for our region. And it shows that we really have a great need, and I'm excited that we are able to help. We are 100% municipality supported. Thank you to Burke County for supporting us. In addition, the city of Morganton supports us as well as all of our towns. They all have representation on our board, which makes us have a big board, but that's okay because we love having everybody to participate and give input and help out with helping these businesses with their loans. So now I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Poteet, our Executive Director, and she's going to be talking to you about the happenings of today and what's going on with VEDIC. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for having us today. In closing, I would like to share a little bit about surviving the pandemic and the good news that comes along with surviving the pandemic. So during that time, we offered and provided a lot of technical assistance to businesses that needed help just knowing which direction to turn as far as, you know, there were so many offerings that were being offered at that time. So we provided direction, we provided deferrals, modifications, and we're still doing that today for our businesses. We also implemented online requests to accommodate all needs, and we feel like that is truly the reason why we were successful during the pandemic. And also during that time, we provided emergency loans for our existing clients, and we did this to bridge the gap until PPP funds were received to assist with cash flow issues. And we also provided in-house closings to administer and reduce those fees as far as attorney costs. As Tanya mentioned, we have received a lot of payoffs since the pandemic. And those payoffs received may have been due to a refinance with a traditional bank. It may have been a low-interest government loan or just a normal term loan payout. We have received 53 loan payoffs since 2020 and a little over $2.4 million. So as Tanya mentioned, our current portfolio today is around 58 loans. So we have been able to revolve those payoffs and get those funds back out into the community and serve those businesses in need. So we just think that is just a tremendous opportunity to see those funds being revolved. We are honored to partner with the Secretary of State in Rural Rise NC. If you haven't heard about that, go check it out. It's just a great resource, and VEDIC is featured as one of the funding sources. And just a couple statistics here that I verified with the Secretary of State. In 2022, Burke County had 513 new businesses registered just here in Burke County, 513. And for the state of North Carolina as a whole, there was 171,400 businesses created. That is amazing. So that just goes to show that businesses are opening and businesses are needing the funding. We have an amazing board of directors, and I am just blessed to work with solid leadership. I'm so thankful for their time and talents that they volunteer and share. Commissioner Mulvey, for your service, and Commissioner Carswell in the past, your service as well. Additionally, our loan review committee currently consists of 9 members, and we are so thankful for all that they contribute in their volunteer efforts in making sound recommendations to our board of directors. And the staff is myself, Eddie McGimpsey in business development, and Chuck Mosley as our on-call help as needed. And these are our 2022-23 contributors. We just want to thank you all for your support throughout the years and allowing us to be a vessel for these businesses to see their dreams truly become a reality. And we just want to thank you, Burke County, for your support specifically. And for all those that have planted seeds in making VEDIC what it is today, we just say thank you so much. We appreciate the time and allowing us to come today, and we'll open the floor to any questions at this time.
Gentlemen, any questions for Carrie? Comments? We heard this information obviously pre-agenda, but we really appreciate y'all coming back tonight and doing it again. And like I said, as a member of the board, I appreciate what you do. Carrie and Eddie work very hard. Tanya's another member of the board, so we, like I said, we really appreciate that critical need you supply to our local community. So, thank you. Gentlemen, do we have a motion to accept the report as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. That'll bring us to presentation number 4. Operational update and proclamation declaring April 9th through 15th as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, presented by Heather Joyner, our 911 Director. How are you doing?
Good evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me an opportunity to come and share an operational update on behalf of the 911 Center. Excuse me, since my onboarding of November the 1st, the first 90 days in, my focus was put in 3 categories. It was on our people, our processes, and our technology within the 911 Center. Within the first 90 days, I have met with the county management team, which, by the way, is a very supportive team, from the finance to human resources, county management. It's just been a wonderful support system and structure for me to be able to have that as we were looking at personnel and operations and workflows within the center. The second was getting to know the 911 team, getting to know my staff, getting to know my department, administrative staff, as well as our frontline supervisors and our telecommunicators. I did that by completing stay interviews with majority of our staff to sit down with them and talk about, what's working, what's not working, and trying to give them a vision for where I saw our center going within the next year. The other part of that is meeting with our partners, our partner agencies for law, fire, and medical emergency management, just sitting down with this group of people and identifying, again, what's working, what's not working within the operational structure. Then it became about looking at training and certifications. How are we performing as telecommunicators within Burke County structure for answering 911 calls and delivering those calls of service. The other one was then looking at our telecommunications workflows from the time a call is received into 911, how it's processed through the telecommunications with protocols and procedures and policies, and just reviewing those workflows and taking a look at all of those things. The next was the budget, looking at our budget, looking at our technology, looking at our systems and overview from not only the primary standpoint, but also from our backup operations. Should we need to relocate or vacate our primary site, go into a backup location, what support is there, and what, if anything, we needed to review. So some accomplishments I would like to share with you for the first 90 days in, and we have added to this list since my last meeting with you on the pre-agenda. So the accomplishments have been conducting weekly executive team meetings with my admin team for GIS, operations, and IT. Basically, again, just trying to put a vision and a phased approach of how we're going to go in and make some changes within the department. We've created an employee engagement team. This is a team of liaisons from each one of our shifts, and part-time we're trying to engage to just kind of hear what can we do to make sure that we keep you, that we retain you. Like, what are the things that the management can do to support you? And the feedback that we have gotten from that has been phenomenal to increase morale and to identify some of those workflow challenges that we may have had. Supervisors. Giving supervisors access for systems and functions that they need to do to be very efficient in their jobs. Assigning them as assistant terminal agency coordinators within the center to help with efficiencies for any recertification or testing that needs to be done from Division of Criminal Information, which has been very supportive in that way. We partnered with Western Piedmont Community College. This was a huge benefit here to Burke County 911. We finally have a 911 curriculum now with Western Piedmont, which before we have been sending our people out of county to get in-service training, whether it was virtual or in person. So I'm glad to know that we are able to partner with our community college to offer not only in-service training, but also a telecommunicators academy, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on. And I think there's a clicker down here somewhere, right? Where's it at? Oh, up here. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, somebody's been doing it for me. Thank you, whoever that is. My genie in a bottle. Thank you for that. So on the next slide here, we have just some of the training that I wanted to share with you about what we're bringing from a national standpoint into Burke County. You know, Sandy Hook school shooting lessons learned. We had Maureen Will, the 911 director from Newtown, Connecticut, to come down and do a training about what they learned during that incident there in Newtown, Connecticut. This was opened up to all law enforcement, fire, medical, and 911 telecommunicators, not just within Burke County, but we did it surrounding counties as well, to bring those individuals together to kind of see what we can do to work towards a planning for an emergency action plan should we ever encounter this type of event here. We have upcoming save the date here for March the 28th and 29th. We have Roger Smock with Be Real Safe coming in to do railroad emergencies. And again, this is another program that we've offered not only within Burke County for police, fire, medical, and 911, but also our surrounding counties as well for them to be able to come in and partake in this training, again, through our partnership with Western Piedmont Community College. So this has been very helpful in that respect. Other accomplishments that we've had is providing our agency admin and frontline supervisors access to NENA's enhanced PSAP registry and census database. As I shared with you during the pre-agenda, a lot of times we get calls that are misrouted to Burke County 911. It could be for Georgia, or it could be for some other states. And this allows the telecommunicators to have access to the database so they don't have to try to Google and find a number, that they actually can get a city or a location and be able to look up the appropriate 911 center for getting these emergencies routed over to the appropriate agencies. We've been adding and updating our GIS data to support our dispatch functions, including fire hydrants, utilities, substations, and emergency action plan with Duke Energy. And as of today, we're adding our school, systems as far as their blueprints and emergency action plans for all of our schools. So that is in progress today. We've created a unified dispatch email account. Instead of personnel using their personal Burke County email accounts, we're trying to keep our CJIS compliance in order by launching this email account for all of our business transactions when it comes to sharing information with our law enforcement and our partners. And then we have public education with our local media partners. This has been really huge to educate the community on who we are. 911, use it, don't abuse it, but also just trying to share an inside look into the heroes behind those headsets or the people behind the scenes. Here's what we do, here's how we play a role in the emergency first responder action plan. So it's been very supportive that way. Here's one of our biggest accomplishments to date is we have added a therapeutic pet for Burke County Communications named Ellie Mae Burke. So Ellie Mae joined us a little over 6 weeks ago. And as of last Wednesday, she has been gone on her journey to begin her therapeutic training. And my staff are very brokenhearted about this. We have been calling like anxious parents do, trying to check a status on how Ellie is doing and how she's performing. And she has been a true asset to the center. She's definitely brightened up a lot of things, and she's brought in for some great conversation and basically helping with those high-stress calls that we encounter there at the 911 center. But Ellie Mae has a bigger purpose than just serving the 911 staff. She will also be used in community events with our 911 for Kids program that we're going to be bringing to Burke County. So we'll be able to take Ellie Mae out into the community and introduce her in that respect as well as taking her over to senior centers and letting seniors engage with her on that way as well. So I wanted to share just a few little pictures, and Ellie has her own Burke County Employee ID badge. I don't know if you guys saw that from the last meeting, but she is an official employee of Burke County. Here's some of the images that we have taken with Ellie since she onboarded with us. Some of our staff members just getting some cuddles and love, and even our emergency service personnel and some of our law enforcement have came just to visit, with Miss Ellie Mae, so she's been a true asset. So where are we going for the next 180 days? So what we're doing is a number of things. Education and training and trade is a big thing. We want to take the basic telecommunicator course and bring it into our high schools. This has been something that was, successful 3 years ago on a national level, but we want to bring this here to Burke County to talk with our high school partners who are providing public safety programs 1 and 2 to include the basic telecommunicator 47-hour basic certification. So when a student graduates from high school, they're walking in with a certification of basic knowledge of 911 telecommunications. And that can lead into Western Piedmont Community College. The program that we'll be adopting and bringing into the college is that 2-year associate's degree program for public safety telecommunications. And then again, we want to also be introducing our Burke County Emergency 911 Telecommunicator Academy. This is where, instead of having the telecommunicators who are onboarded to training in a live environment, to take that into a more controlled environment with simulators of working in a CAD and radio communications, and have that lecture time, very similar to kind of BLET or paramedic program. It will be specifically catered to telecommunicators. So when they do go into a full-time role of working with a lead telecommunicator or a certified training officer, that they actually have someone who's already been through all the basic knowledge and workflows of operations, so they can be more of an effective asset while they're working and training on the job. Then we have continued training and hosted certification courses that we're going to continue to do with Western Piedmont, bringing some of those national classes in and also hosting our in-service classes to maintain certifications. We have public relations and community workshops about 911 and CPR. This is a partnership we're looking at with Duke Energy to bring our 911 for Kids program here. And when we're successful in that endeavor, I'll be bringing in our stadium mascot, Reddy Fox, to meet the board and have him introduced to you guys. But he is going to be a very asset to us to go into preschool and elementary schools and teaching about 911 for kids, and also acknowledging those hard calls where we have kids that will call 911, and we want to acknowledge the bravery that it takes for kids to make that phone call. So this is a program that we'll be introducing. Revising our Burke County emergency communication policies and procedures. One of the things that came out in our stay interviews with our staff was there was no room for growth. So we want to really look at how we can develop our layers in the communication center to create levels of growth within the agency. And then supportive operations within our backup operations and support. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 90 days. And at this time, I will entertain any questions or concerns that you have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? As I said, it's pre-agenda. Is that it? That's all in 90 days?
That's what I was just getting ready to say, 90 days. Wow.
Yeah, well, I will say, it takes a village. It takes a team, and I have a very strong team of people that are very passionate about the work that they do, and this is just opening a vessel of growth and opportunity, and I'm so thankful to be a part of that here in Burke County.
Have any of your folks here tonight?
Yeah, I have another item after the report, which is our National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week proclamation. So if I can get my staff to stand, telecommunicators to stand. As they stand for just a moment, I would like to point out our 911 Lifesaver Awards. This is something that we are doing for National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week to acknowledge the 911 lifesavers. And what that means is basically telecommunicators who have stayed on the phone with hysterical, upset, very distraught callers and supporting them through CPR over the telephone for pre-arrival medical instructions. And the outcome is it contributed to saving a life. So majority of the staff that are standing are recipients of the 911 Lifesavers Awards that will be given out during that week. So thank you guys for the work you do and the hard stuff you encounter. And so with that, the National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week proclamation, if you may give me just a moment for me just to read this brief statement to you. So the proclamation is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April the 19th through April 15th of 2023. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or medical emergency response, and whereas an emergency occurs, the prompt response of law enforcement, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property, and whereas the safety of our law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency response personnel is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from callers who telephone the Burke County Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency services personnel by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of Burke County have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, pre-delivery of medical direction and treatment of patients, And whereas each telecommunicator has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their duties in the past year. Now therefore be it resolved that the County of Burke declares the week of April 9th through April 15th, 2023 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our county residents and visitors safe. Be it further resolved that the original of this proclamation be presented to Burke County Emergency Communications Center and orders that a copy of this proclamation be spread upon the minutes of the Burke County Board of Commissioners this 20th day of March 2023.
Gentlemen, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, we made a very bold decision years back when we built the 911 center, state of the art. It cost a lot of money when we built that place. But we had a vision in mind when we built it, and that vision has come through. And I'm very proud to sit here today and say that we have been a part of that. But what I want to really say is not only do we have a state-of-the-art building, we have state-of-the-art when the people are out there. And the biggest thing we did is you're very humble. We hired you to be the leader that we need at this time. And everybody out here is going, oh. So we're very proud of that. We're very proud of you. And we know that you're going to make this operation what it should have been passed. So my heart just pours out. I am so thrilled that you are here with us.
Thank you, thank you. I too am just as humbled and honored to be here, to be a part of this legacy that this board has started and will continue to live. So thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, with that said, I want to move to accept the report as Heather has presented to us and approve proclamation number 2023-02.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. And once again, we're eternally grateful to you and your staff. Y'all are doing an amazing job, and I'm just echoing what Johnny just said, but we really appreciate everything y'all do. We know it's a difficult job, and it is much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, gentlemen, that was our last presentation. Next item is scheduled public hearing, zoning text amendment ZTA 2023-01, and public hearing. This will be presented by our good friend Alan Glimes, Deputy County Manager and Planning Director. Alan, how are you, sir?
I'm great, thank you. Chairman Moley, members of the commission, and members of the public. Glad to be here tonight. I have Bradley Kirkley, Assistant Planning Director, with me in case we have additional questions. We're here to bring the item of short-term rentals back to the board. We're operating under a moratorium, and we promise you we work on the topic and meet with the community and see what we can do. The staff of the Community Development Department have reviewed and considered changes and amendments to this section in our zoning code for short-term rental ordinance. After careful consideration of the ordinance, review of the Schroeder versus the City of Wilmington case, and after a community meeting on the topic and also speaking with a number of community members, sometimes in the office, sometimes on the phone, staff are proposing an amendment which would remove this section from the Burke County zoning code. This retraction would remove all references to the term short-term rental. We've considered the following factors in this item to bring before you, is that the court case, the Schroeder versus City of Wilmington case, sided in favor of the Schroeder family in that lawsuit, which was against the regulations, many of which we have in our books as well, for short-term rentals within the City of Wilmington. The court agreed that the use is more akin to a residential use than a commercial use, and that was basically part of the foundation of a lot of the rules that cities and counties across North Carolina proposed and had on their books. The court let stand provisions and relevance of residential building code. Registrations of short-term rentals are not allowed because rental registrations of residential uses in North Carolina are not permitted. Additional inspections of a home after that very initial, during the time of home construction, after that period and a certificate of occupancy is issued for a home, no more inspections are permitted. So that was part of the ground and the foundation of our ordinance was safety, and we wanted to take an inspection of the home. Well, we really can't do that after that initial construction period. and that home has received its certificate of occupancy. There's no real enforcement action which would prohibit that use from continuing without a permit. So it's a home use, and it's in a home, and so the house is going to stay put and be there. Enforcement of a very few outstanding provisions of the ordinance may be taken up in other ways if problems with noise or crowding of streets arise. If a neighborhood is against this use, short-term rental, a homeowners association of the neighbors may be able to address this issue more effectively. And in addition to that, and aside from just the homeowners association, just good neighbor-to-neighbor communication about what it is to be a neighbor in that neighborhood, what it means to the folks that live there. Just good communication with those property owners, might go a long way as well. In the year and a half that our ordinance has been in place, there have been very limited numbers of valid concerns or complaints about the use. And there's a substantial amount of support for short-term rentals among residents and property owners in Burke County. And this has been captured in community comments over various forums, the meeting we had here at the end of January, and in petitions that were provided some time ago when the ordinance was first proposed. And so with all that in mind, the staff recommend that the item be removed. Now, we did take this, of course, to the planning board, and they reviewed the issue at their February 23rd meeting, and after a lot of dialogue and back and forth amongst the board members, they did vote 4-1 to recommend that the item be taken out. So that's what I have for you tonight, and I can answer any questions, and if I can't answer them, Bradley might be able to, or if you're ready for a public hearing on the matter, we might hear from some members of the public.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? Thank you, Alan. Well, gentlemen, at this time, then I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to wishes to speak to this issue?
Mr. Chairman, I have two gentlemen that signed up to speak during informal public comments, but I noticed they have listed STR or short-term rentals on the card. They might want to speak now. Okay, Cliff Bechtel.
Cliff Bechtel, Lake James. I was in such a hurry to get here, and I had some food ready for the House of Refuge. I had my hands full. I walked out and left all my notes at home, so I might sound a little disjointed here when I get going, but and I certainly don't want to argue with the North Carolina Supreme Court who passed a ruling, or with Alan who just spoke, but I did have a rebuttal for most every one of his comments, but they're at home, so I can't remember them all. A little bit of what I know. By the way, I thought this meeting was going to be on Tuesday, and it turned out on Monday, and I just really got the word Saturday at the Lake James cleanup. We had 170 volunteers. We fed them all, and we got 31 tires and tons of trash out of the lake, which I also got a walking stick from you guys for that one time, last year. Anyway, a little bit about what I know is the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled against short-term rentals with Wilmington, but it wasn't short-term rentals. It was with the requirements that they were imposing on short-term rentals, which was permits and registration, and that's what they said was not right, not kosher. So what I think is we really do need short-term rentals. Why can't we get our lawyer to make it comply with the North Carolina State Supreme Court? And we wouldn't have to delete because Bradley worked long and hard on getting this ready, this short-term rentals for Burke County, and I'd like to see it stay here, but I know the plan is to get rid of it. But I know that the North Carolina Supreme Court used the North Carolina Vacation Act to get all of their rules and everything. They all rolled that into the IPR, which is inspection, permit, and registration rules, which became this 160D rule that everybody's talking about for North Carolina, and that includes the short-term rentals. That's what they ruled on anyway. So I guess what I'm saying is let's keep the short-term rental and make it comply with the Supreme Court, because we already got it written up in our R1 regulations. I don't like to throw the baby out with the wash water when we already did all that work. Bradley and his team put it together. Well, I guess that's about all I got to say, unless I could answer any questions. But I read so many things about this today in a short time. I don't know if my poor brain can remember all of it, but I'd be glad to answer anything if I could.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
We may have Alan and Bradley come up to respond.
All right. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
David Crossan.
David Crossan, resident here at 109 La Bellevue Street, Morganton. I'd like to thank the chairman and the other commissioners. I'd like to thank Alan and the zoning team. On the 18th of October, there was a board meeting here where the board had to make a decision to pass the moratorium. And in doing so, they heard public comments, and they did make a commitment that the work going forward to determine what to do would be done with stakeholders in mind. And that's exactly what Alan and his team did. So we met with Alan and his team on the 31st of January, had a very well-rounded folks that came in from around the community that had a whole host of opinions on the matter. But if I could say so, or at least in my opinion, the majority of the folks that took time to come in and voice their opinions were in favor of doing away with very restrictive STR zoning requirements, which also led to the review of each one of those against the list that Alan provided. So again, I'd like to thank Alan and his team for taking the time to listen. It was, at times, the temperature got up in the room a little bit. Everyone was respectful, but there were passionate folks that made their voices known. And again, I want to thank the board for making sure that the charter moving forward did have stakeholders in mind. Having said that, we couldn't agree more with the zoning board's recommendations to do away with this particular ordinance. We feel it hurts Burke County. It restricts potential business owners and homeowners from taking opportunities, for varying reasons, to bring a little bit of revenue and a little bit of tourism in their part here to the Burke County environment and take advantage of all the great things we have to offer. So having said that, I just want to say thanks. There was, again, in my opinion, overwhelming support to modify or do away with it, and I'm happy to answer any questions on behalf of our position on the matter, but I know Alan and his team can speak very vehemently and in great detail. Having said that, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. So, with there no one else here to speak on this issue, I'll now close the public comment, and I'll ask Alan to come forward, please. And if you'd like to just speak to
the concerns that Mr. Bechtel had. When you go through the court case and review the different factors and issues that were ruled against the city of Wilmington, it was really most of the ordinance, so there wasn't much left to keep. And we felt we were in the same position when we reviewed our ordinance. We were trying to manage for safety and inspect and count rooms and that sort of thing, and there's just so little to be done with that. I was speaking to two families from Holiday Shores last Thursday. They came in the office and kind of explained how code enforcement works. And when someone has trash or something in their yard, let's say, for example, they call for code enforcement to kind of take a look at the issue. We go out and we try to notice the condition or the complaint, and then we will write a letter and notice the people that, they need to remove their trash and clean things up. And so we give them a little time, we go back and check it, and often the fence is cleaned up and things are taken care of. Managing for a short-term rental would be a similar thing. It's a residential use at a home. If there's a party at, one evening, we might get notice of it on Monday morning. Probably the party's over by then, and we might write a letter to somebody to an owner for their property to say, we heard there was a party, it disturbed some of your neighbors, please mind the parties. And that might be the end of it, because the party's over and the code case, if you will, has been kind of taken care of. That's how code enforcement works, and that's what we're would be looking at from trying to manage short-term rental for some of those very unique, once-in-a-while conditions. And that's, for all that, we just didn't feel like we're adding enough value to keep short-term rental in the ordinance. We don't want to have things, extraneous issues or items in the code that really don't add value to our community. And we felt that we're basically at a point with that, with the limitations through the Schroeder versus City of Wilmington case.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Gentlemen? No, sir, public comments is on, but I would encourage you to speak to Alan and Bradley. Please, sir. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance number 2023-03, redacting all references to short-term rental within the Burke County zoning ordinance, and to adopt the following consistency statement. Zoning text amendment ZTA 2023-01 is reasonable and in the best interest of the county because the state of North Carolina legislature has not provided clear guidance on how to regulate short-term rentals. Furthermore, recent court decisions have ruled against many of the short-term rental regulations enforced in other jurisdictions. Since Burke County has many of those same regulations, much of the current short-term ordinance would have to be removed. The text amendment also conforms with the county's adopted comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. We've heard Commissioner Britton's motion. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that carries 5-0. That'll move us to second scheduled public hearing, community development again. Our friend Alan Gline, zoning map amendment ZMA 2023-01, and public hearing, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, members of the public. We have an application for your review to consider a rezoning for Dean Evans and Larry Lingle, property owners, for Oak Hill Church Road area, to remove industrial zoning from their property and rezone it to residential 3. Properties in Connolly Springs, eastern part of the county. Let's see here. These are the tracts here that are in request. You see it's mostly a rural area. There's a cemetery here that belongs to this church. I think it's Oak Ridge Baptist Church. And this is the current zoning map. Mrs. Evans, Mr. Evans' mother, did not want to have her property included in the rezoning, so it would remain out. But these properties here would be, if approved, would be taken from industrial to R3. And these are industrially zoned properties because the Evans family ran a family business there for many, many years, and so that was the proper zoning when the zoning was adopted in Burke County. Future land use map is next. And it shows the area as retaining that, but if you would approve the rezoning, that would also change to a future residential or residential expansion in our mapping for future land uses. And so if this is approved, this kind of encourages residential infill in an area of the county. It's a fairly large tract, and that's the request of the property owner. So we took this item to the planning board in January, and they voted 5-0 to recommend approval and support that, and staff also approved that. And we have a motion for all that after a public hearing. I can answer any questions for you if you have any. I have a few photos too. Let me just show you. Oop, no, I don't. Residential and rural. It's a beautiful little area over there, small road off of Shady Grove, and Eichard Road is road, I believe the other road is. Thank you.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Alan? There being none, I'll now open the floor for public comment, a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to this issue?
It's my property, I need to speak for this issue.
Only if you wish to.
But I just would like to know this one thing.
Please.
It's Oak Ridge Church Road instead of Oak Hill Church Road to start with. But part of that's still purple there is going to be zoned residential if y'all approve it. This smaller tract over here that's outlined in red, that's part of it. And also that other larger tract on the right side of it is also part of it. My mother's property is that little on the right front right there at the red square. Mom's 87, said she just didn't want to mess with her property, so I just left that alone. You know. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Gentlemen? I think so. Thank you, sir. Anybody else here wish to speak to this issue? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance number 2023-02, approving ZMA 2023-01 for 3 parcels of land located off of Oak Ridge Church Road, Connolly Springs, corresponding to PIN numbers 2763381-840, 2763-296170, and a 0.17 acre portion of 276-328-7961 to rezone from industrial zoning district to residential 3 zoning district, and to find that the request is reasonable and in the public interest because in the Blueprint Burke Plan, the character of the area is most consistent with residential infill. The former heavy commercial use will now focus on a residential use and be compatible with the surrounding area. By action of the Board of Commissioners, the future land use map is amended to residential infill for this area without need for separate action. This is consistent with what the Commissioners find that ordinance number 2023-02 related to rezoning application ZMA 2023-01 and located off of Oak Ridge Church Road, Connolly Springs, to be consistent with the Blueprint Burke Plan, showing most of the surrounding area as residential infill. The zoning is reasonable and is in the public interest by bringing the former land use septic business into the residential 3 zoning district. The new district would allow for uses which would be consistent with a residential setting and allow compatibility with the surrounding area. The future land use map is adjusted to be consistent with the residential infill.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. You can take a drink of Diet Coke now. Gentlemen, you heard Commissioner Carswell's motion. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 5-0 for approval. All right, gentlemen. This brings us to informal public comments. I will remind each speaker you're limited to 3 minutes. We do have several people signed up or pre-registered to speak. So I will now open the floor for public comments. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I would call on Ms. Shaquania Suggs.
Hello, my name is Shaquana Suggs. I live at 103 Silver Creek Road in Morganton, North Carolina. Before I share my story, I want to paint a picture to you of who I am. I live and work in Burke County. I recently own a house in Burke County. I enjoy the trails and the campsites of Burke County. I pay taxes in Burke County. Someday, I'd like to start a family in Burke County. Where I teach, I am the only African American faculty member where I'm positioned to teach American Studies, African American Literature, Black Studies, and eventually critical race theory. In January 2021, I took a group of students on a field trip around Morganton, North Carolina, as part of the Hometown Walkabout experience. One of the stops was the Confederate Monument downtown. While the speaker talked about the complicated history of the monument and its relationship with Burke County, an older white man in a white van slowly pulled up to us and rolled down his window. I seemed to be the only one who noticed him. After he refused to talk to me and the other teachers, I prepared for the worst. Be it words or bullets of hate and misunderstanding, I stepped in front of as many students as possible, prepared to take the hit. Soon, almost 150 of my students will be downtown Morganton for the same field trip. One of our stops is the Confederate Monument. Our students are just now figuring out where they want to politically, socially, and culturally align themselves. They are hungry to see people and symbols and art that reflect all of their different identities. Though I do my best to prepare them for uncomfortable conversations about America's past, I can't help but wonder how many times I will have to step in front of them to shield them from potential threats. That monument is a reminder to me that no matter who I am or what I teach, me, my students, my colleagues, and my family can never feel as safe in Morganton. I can only hope that someday when my kid is standing there before that memorial square to learn about its history, that monument won't be there. And that if it is, someone will be there to stand in the way when I can't be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Suggs. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Frank Smith?
Hello, I'm Frank Smith. I ran for county commission. So thank y'all for what you do. This is not addressed to Phil Smith or Randy Burns because they were part of this. Burke County increased their taxes at least 37% minimum. Many people ended up paying more than that. But when you go from 78 cents to $1.15, that's a 37% increase. So let's think about this. Oh, they built something in your neighborhood and made it worth more. No. You did add-ons to your house. No. There's another thing. Oh, the fair market value, which is determined in Raleigh. Well, let's do a little comparison. Raleigh, you have UNC, University of North Carolina State, Duke. You have this little thing called the Research Triangle. It is one of the most sought-after places to live. And yes, their population has increased substantially in the last few years, 4% per year, by the way. Where Burke County's population has decreased substantially in the last 10 years, according to the U.S. Census. Matter of fact, it's decreased 4.8%. So, my question to you three commissioners, and thank you for letting me talk, is what constitutes a minimum of a 37% tax increase on our property? This does not include the landfill or the fire. That's different because our forms are different for that. The amount we pay is different for that. So it's good to hear that we have a good 911 system. I will say this is a little bit out of my comment. My family has been in this county since about 1840. And I have a great-great-great-great-great-grandfather on that statue who never owned anybody, never thought about that, and I don't see how a statue makes anyone feel bad. Now, maybe if I saw a statue of Malcolm X, it'd make me feel bad. But it doesn't, because that's part of American history. And if you don't like that, sorry. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But I don't feel it's a threat. But on the tax issue, it wasn't intended. But on the tax issue, people want to live here. I've lived here for years. I want to stay here. Don't price me out of here. And don't compare Burke County to the local counties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Madam Clerk?
Dr. Courtney Mull.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dr. Courtney Mull. We live at 5127 Piedmont Road in Oak Hill. I worked a shift and I kept my coat on today because I have 3 medical metaphors that I want to use talking about our Confederate monument. The first is the best lesson I ever learned from the attending that taught me hospice and palliative care. And so you use it in patients that are transitioning to a terminal prognosis, terminal diagnosis. And that is shifting your language from talking about invasive treatments to self-empowering, patient-oriented questions. Like, how do you want to be as you go through this? How can I support you to be that person as you go through this? And I don't want to say the situation with the Confederate monument is terminal. We do, have the statute that can limit things, so sometimes it can feel like that. But I do think we have control over how we will be in that process. And I was born in '77. I didn't get a cell phone until I was 28. I was a physician by then. I used maps to get around. And I remember a time, and I'm not on Facebook, but I remember a time when people could talk with each other, people that had different beliefs, and they could listen and sit in a difficult conversation, and it didn't hurt them, and they weren't afraid of it. And I want to teach my daughters, I want our future communities to see that strength. So that's my first metaphor. My second is guilt. You don't have to experience guilt to affect change and to want to affect change. I don't experience guilt to treat a migraine headache patient. Guilt has nothing to do with it. It can if you experience guilt, but it doesn't have to, so I don't want to hear that word thrown anymore. It doesn't need to be part of it. And the third is a concept called triage. So I admire all of you. I cannot imagine, I know there's a lot more that you get involved in that are not on this as far as needs of your community, so I appreciate that. In my own work, when I have needs and I'm trying to prioritize, we have triage. Especially when there's a safety concern brought to you from your community that has elected you and multiple members of your community, it deserves at least a triage. Even if you don't own that issue for forever, you can triage it. You can make a quick assessment. If that's finding a task force, if that's coming to Thursday's symposium on the symbols of the South, if it's just sitting and listening or having this space continued, is at least triaging it. So again, I thank you all. I love our county, and I thank you for giving us a place to repeatedly come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mull. Madam Clerk?
Miss Carla Kincaid.
Good evening. Carla Kincaid, live in the Oak Hill community in Burke County. I've been here before. I've just got some information from some young man that participated in the Black Lives Matters, I think it was the Floyd movement here, and just wanted to give him some of his comments that he had at the time that it happened, and he still remains to have some of those feelings today. I remember moving to Burke County in the 90s. We drove towards Lenoir and we saw a sign that said KK rally with an arrow pointing down the road and to the left of it. We've also lived under the rebel flag. We've been bullied by those who represent that flag and support it, and it still plays a big part in racism in our lives today. We still tear down statues that were erected from the Jim Crow era because the sons of Confederate soldiers still stand around it with guns and promote division instead of love and understanding. We still have under leadership who denounces Black Lives Matter and promotes racial inequality and chaos in the entire country. We are still being murdered by the very people we can call on to protect and serve us. So don't tell me the statue needs to stay. Don't tell me that the flag isn't bothering nobody. Don't tell me that these material things doesn't have anything to do with these things and influence people to harm us. I've seen it. You have seen it. The whole world has seen it. Don't tell us that it's a small matter that can be overlooked and then tell us to go vote. Tell us you have our backs to remove these things on the pathway to voting for a better tomorrow. We all have to do what we must do for each other, all ages, all races, or we continue to move backwards in time. It's not about making America great again. America was never that great. America is about hope, peace, justice, and equality for all people. Let's prove it. Let's stand up, march, protest, and fight for that with the right combination. Peace and blessings. And he's got another part on that, but I want to get to this poem that was written. What does the symbols of Confederacy say in Burke? Visitors in and visitors out. Most certainly must be confused about what this county is all about. A Confederate flag as you enter, another as you leave, on the I-40 corridor from Wilmington to Cali for all travelers to see. Yes, their own personal property. I can understand that. The message it sends to the travelers is much different than that. They shout out to some, just keep passing through. This just may not be the place for you. They represent the residents of the county of Burke. They represent embarrassment, humility, and hurt. And if you happen to miss these old symbols on the I-4 corridor, there stands another symbol on the old courthouse that is the county seat's eyesore. A Confederate statue stands on the old courthouse square. Another symbol of embarrassment, humility, and hate stands there. The statue was built and erected years after the loss of the Confederate War. It will forever be challenged like many, many more. In cities nearby, the county and the city officials have all worked together to do what is best for their community for the future and forever. They have removed those old Southern symbols of hurt, hate, and disgrace. The symbols have come down forever or moved to a cemetery or some other place. But there is one thing on which they all did agree. No symbols of the Old South will stand here, for in this county, it's all about unity. What about you, Burke County Commissioners? Are you about unity in your county?
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid. Madam Clerk?
Unless Mr. Crossan wanted to speak in this forum, that was all the cards that I have.
All right, I'll close the public comments. Gentlemen, this moves us to the consent agenda. I'll ask our county manager to present that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several items for consideration this evening, all of which you were presented in detail at your pre-agenda meeting. The first item is a resolution authorizing the county manager to sign onto the settlement agreement as part of a second wave of the opioid litigation settlement for 5 distribution points. Item 2 is from our clerk, which is consideration of reappointments and modifications to our Burke Senior Center Advisory Council. Item 3, also a recommendation from the clerk for appointment to the Foothills Regional Airport Authority. Item 4 is a report received from Tara Conrad from Partners Health Management, and that's the financial reports for the period ending calendar year January through December 2022. Item 5 was a report received from our county recreation team on sports participation and outcomes for 22 and year-to-date 2023. Item 6 is your monthly collection report from our tax department for the month ending February 2023. Item 7 is your tax department monthly report for release and refunds for February 2023. And finally, item 8 for consideration is an order to advertise for delinquent real property taxes in compliance with North Carolina General Statute 105-369. Mr. Chairman, that concludes a fairly concise consent. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Epley. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor signify with the uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. That brings us to item number 10, items for decision. Approval of Dogwood Trust Grant Opioid Planning Grant, presented by Mr. Epley, our county manager.
As we discussed at pre-agenda, the Dogwood Trust Foundation grant was an opportunity for Burke County to receive $275,000 in exchange for some outcomes, specifically with strategy surrounding the use of our opioid settlement dollars. At the time, we were asking the board to allow us to go back to the team at Dogwood and to modify some of the performance outcomes in the grant. And we've submitted those modifications to Dogwood Trust, but we have not concluded that process. And we'd like to recommend that the board continue this until your April meeting, which time we think we'll have ample time to iron out those wrinkles.
Gentlemen, comments, questions? It's the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this item until our April meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. Thank you, sir. And since you're standing there, amendment to the county travel policy. This is item number 2, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I think this is something as a criteria of administrative housekeeping that the team's been working on now for a little while. And I wanted to, obviously the full policy has been circulated to you for your review, but I wanted to run through a few highlights. Obviously in county government we have 28 operating departments. We have many needs around the county, whether it's at a policy level for continuing education or our departments. And so we've tried to take a really comprehensive look at the countywide travel policy with specific attention to simplification and streamline. We wanted to modernize and we wanted to create organizational uniformity. We think that that level of application would really promote a more meaningful travel policy. If in your packet you have again the full policy recommendation. I've broken it down into the sections. There's types of travel. Certainly have things that require either advance or post reimbursement, things like meals, lodging, reimbursement for personal use of a vehicle, the types of training for education, types of travel, education, and training, and then lastly, how do you reconcile all that with the appropriate forms? Again, just hitting the high spots here, but when we talk about types of travel, there's many types of travel. You could have travel inside of our county. You could have overnight in-state, overnight out-of-state. We've tried to be very precise with meal reimbursement. Again, in-state and out-of-state, there are provisions in the proposed policy that would account for high-cost cities. So if you read the IRS codification, there's 10 high-cost cities, for example, Washington, D.C., Miami, some of those places where there's just exorbitant cost, and that would be outside of the parameters here outlined. But it gives us the flexibility to manage that while promoting necessary travel that's needed in our business. Lodging, obviously, we're going to pursue governmental rates in instances where it would exceed this, that rate of $155.80 comes from the state treasurer's office. In instances where there's not a conference rate or that can't be exceeded, again, we have flexibility to modify that if we've shopped that around. From personal use, I think very simply, as you would see in most organizations, we're going to follow IRS guidelines for what's reimbursable. And the big change I want to point out is this procedures informed. I've got a link here. We've tried to really put everything, as Scott's pulling that up, into one form. When we talk about simplicity and streamlining and modernization, it's not just referencing to the appropriate reimbursement rates, but we built a form that houses all of our types of travel in one editable PDF that'll be accessible to all department heads that really encompasses all of the appropriate reviews and sign-offs, and is I think we check the box of simplicity and streamline while being modern and uniform across the organization. Again, very short and sweet, but I did want to present this to the board as a recommendation for adoption. And I would ask at the same time, as we move forward, as things like IRS rates change and immaterial updates to this policy need to happen, it may be in the interest of the organization from a pace perspective, just to authorize the manager to make small tweaks to this policy as we move forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I take great pleasure in approving this new travel policy as presented and giving the county manager authority to make tweaks as necessary in changes in rules from the government.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. Gentlemen, all those in favor signify with uplifted hand. 5-0, and thank you for getting that done, Mr. Epley. Way overdue. Thank you, sir. All right, gentlemen, that's all of the items for decision. We'll go to reports and comments, and we'll talk. We'll start with Thad down there at the end. Any comments?
No, I don't really have any comments. We're working through budget with the county manager. Margaret's gone on vacation, so we definitely look forward to having her back, but I feel like everything's flowed along nicely. If anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out, and we'll be glad to help.
Thank you, sir. Mr. County Attorney?
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir. Mr. County Manager? Well, I skipped Kay. I'm sorry. I was going to come back to you, but yeah, go ahead.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay.
I'll be very brief, but I will echo what Mr. Hodge said. We have started our meeting with our department. We had several today. We'll have all 28 over the next 2 weeks, and we're excited about that. And really, it really kicked off the process with the hard work that the Board of Commissioners did in your planning retreat. That's given us clear direction and deliverables, and we're excited about that. So I just wanted to brag on the board and tell you thank you for your hard work in that endeavor.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith?
Don't have anything, sir.
Commissioner Burns?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to reiterate, I've really enjoyed my committee assignments, and I feel like we're making substantial progress. I do want to take just a point of privilege to say that I'm excited to have Tommy Fraley coming on the Airport Authority's Board of Directors. I think Tommy will be a tremendous asset there.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Britton?
No comment.
Commissioner Carswell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to take a moment to talk about the trip that the county manager, the chairman, Scott, Danny Scalise, our health department director, and myself, we went to speak to Mr. Mark Benton, who was Deputy Secretary of Health about a week or so ago. And this was in the Medicaid transformation arena. There is a lot of money coming down from the federal government for Medicaid transformation. It still has to pass the Senate, but it looks like it's going to be able to do that. We did make some inroads as the first county that sat down with anybody in Raleigh to say we'd like to be privileged to have monies that may become available in the opioid arena or the substance abuse arena here in Burke County as we move forward, maybe with some rehabilitation programs. We were well received, and we've got good news back from Raleigh. We don't have the total good news yet, but we did get an indication that the news was good. Our meeting went extremely well, and I do appreciate the fact that all of us made that trip. It was a trip down and a trip back, but it was well worth it, and I enjoyed talking to the Deputy Secretary. We will be meeting with Cody Kinsley, the Secretary of Health and Human. You and I, and you don't know this yet, but you and I will be meeting with Secretary Cody Kinsley next month on a trip with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, who will probably have the final details on Medicaid transformation and the monies that will be available to counties.
Thank you, sir. That was a good meeting. Speaking of meetings, I know our new county manager had, I believe, 7 or 8 with employees last week, and I was able to attend most of those. So we got in front of the employees, got great feedback, and I think it was very informative for them and for us. So appreciate the hard work and effort you put into that, and I enjoyed that. Even when we were at the landfill and the boys tried to take me out in the new dump truck and scare me going up and down those really steep hills, but it was a lot of fun. It's like riding around the Tonka toy. So I appreciate that. Commissioner Smith and I attended the Lake James visitor ribbon cutting Friday before last, and had a great crowd. And Brian and I, our county manager and I, also toured Western Piedmont Community College this morning for several hours, getting some updates on that as well. And then I did get sworn in, gentlemen, by the NCACC Risk Pool Group as a trustee last week, representing that group, representing the counties. And so I was in Raleigh for that as well as that meeting there. So been a busy time for all of us. And at this time, I would remind everyone, please don't litter. We probably get more complaints than anything else about litter, and it's an easy thing to rectify. And so I would remind everyone, especially going to convenience sites or the landfill, please cover your loads. That's 90% of it, and it's the same roads, and they're on the same way going to especially the landfill. So please do that. And as we mentioned earlier, we have plenty of cats and dogs, so adopt or foster a pet from Animal Services and spay or neuter your pet. Those ladies are doing, and gentlemen are doing an unbelievable job down there, but they're just overwhelmed with animals. So please do that for us as well. And Madam Clerk. We'll move to vacancy announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, citizens. We have the following opportunities for citizens to serve on county boards and committees: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, City of Morganton for the Board of Adjustment and Planning Board for the ETJ, Burke Senior Center Advisory Council, Child Protection and Child Fatality Prevention Team, East Burke Senior Center Advisory Board, Council on Aging, Burke County Board of Health, Partners Consumer and Family Advisory Committee representing traumatic brain injury, and the Hickory Regional Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And people always ask how they can get involved in their local community. Well, there are multiple examples. We do need people, so please, if you have the time or the interest, I would ask you to please sign up for one of these. So, gentlemen, there is a need for closed session, so I will need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A 3, 4, 5, and 6.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That's 5-0. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we had a proper motion to come out of closed session. Gentlemen, we're now in open session. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize the county manager and the county attorney to close the purchase of property that we discussed, assuming that the county's civil work comes in clean.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. And gentlemen, I believe that's all our business that we need to conduct tonight. Any comments, questions? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Commissioner Britton. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That's 5-0, Madam Clerk.